So where are we today, Bill?
Well, Rick, we are in Harts location,
Uh-huh.
which is in the very well-known Crawford Notch.
Yeah.
We're just a little bit north or west, I guess, of the North Conway, and we're in the lower reaches of the Notch. And today we're visiting Abel Crawford and his lovely wife, Hannah.
And why are we visiting them?
Well, they were among the very, very first settlers. You could say they were the first settlers, along with their extended family and their in-laws. And they are actually responsible pretty much for the tourist industry that New Hampshire enjoys today.
We were discussing that on the way up. I mean, it's sort of a joke, I guess, but we were going to, North Conway was fairly full today. It is Veterans Day.
Yes.
And we thought, gee, who's responsible for all this traffic? Right there.
There you go. Well, Abel and Hannah, they were among the very first settlers.
Yeah.
And they migrated actually from Vermont. And originally, they had a cabin up at the top of the Notch, which was called Fabian or Fabians.
Yeah.
And that was back in 1793. So...
Now, is that where Fabian's is today?
Yes, exactly. It's
Yeah,
where the
thought so.
Fabian's
Okay.
restaurant, Fabian's right
Yeah,
there.
all right.
It's the exact same place. His father-in-law, Abel's father-in-law, Eliza Rosebrook,
Yeah.
also from Vermont, he purchased the property from his son-in-law,
Yeah.
and he turned it into an inn.
So
And that was the beginning.
So actually, we could blame him.
Yes.
Yeah.
He was, if you will, yes.
Yes.
He created the first inn.
Okay.
And then his Abel came down here
Yeah.
and opened up another inn.
Yeah.
So now that they started, not only did they start the tourist industry in the state of New Hampshire, they probably were the first hotel chain owners.
Yeah. And they had taverns up and down.
Yes, they did.
And I think there may be more then than there are today.
That's probably true too.
Yeah.
Actually, one of Abel's sons, Ethan, is probably even more famous because the famous Ethan Pass.
Yeah.
Path or with the trail that goes up to the top of Mount Washington was
Yep.
his and still bears his name today.
I have climbed that.
Yeah, I have
Yeah.
too. And so actually, but the whole family had inns all the way up and down the
Yeah.
Notch area. It's about actually this location, Harts location here in the Notch Land Inn, which we'll talk a little bit about here in a moment, was the Abel's Inn, and it's about 12 miles up to the head of the Notch where Fabian's is.
Yep.
So, and Abel and Hannah, they had 8 sons and daughters, including Ethan. So about 1800, the Crawford family had a pretty good hold on Crawford Notch.
Yes. I think it's appropriate that the Notch is called Crawford Notch.
Yeah. In 1828, Abel, his son, Ethan, built a second inn called the Notch House.
Yeah.
And Abel's son, Tom, became the manager of that. And as I said, they became kind of the first hotel chain owners.
Yeah.
And then by 1818, Abel was guiding tours. So he was bringing in people, tourists,
Yeah.
a lot of famous people into the valley.
Think about what it must have been like back then, though, to be guided up Mount Washington, and you sort of probably had to be.
Yes.
I mean, there weren't all of the AMC trails like
Yeah.
today. There must really been something, but it did attract a lot of famous people at that time.
When you think that, of course, now it's a modern 2-lane highway, blacktop highway, and it's kind of a north-south route that's
Yeah.
used by a lot of people going to and from up into Vermont or further up into the Notches in the White Mountains. But at that time, it was no more than a path.
Oh, I've seen the old photographs. I mean, it looks like the end of the world in some way.
Well, I've seen, you've seen obviously pictures of taken in the 20s with 30s with
Yeah,
Model
the
Ts,
leaves going
Model
up,
A's,
yeah.
and they're all stacked up trying to get up the notch, and it was slightly paved at that time.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
so it's, today it's an easy task, and, probably as you do get up through the notch, even your modern car will slip down a gear to crawl up the notch.
Sometimes, yeah. But
Uh,
nowadays, I mean, how often have we driven up there to fish the Ammonoosuc or something along that line?
and of course, the Saco River is right on the other side of the highway here.
Yeah.
Certainly, we've fished those areas as well.
Yeah.
Well, anyway, the Crawford family, they were very opportunist, saw, an opportunity, seized the opportunity, but they never were really very successful at it. It was either feast or famine. So beside us here is the grave of Dr. Samuel Bemis.
Yeah.
So when Abel died, his son Nathaniel Davis took over the management of the inn. And he was both in ill health financially as well as his true health. And he was passing away. So Dr. Bemis ended up taking over the inn. He asked him to foreclose on him, and he did. It was a friendly foreclosure.
Yeah.
It was planned.
So Bemis could more or less take over. Well, not more or less, did take over.
He did take over.
Yeah.
And he built the current inn, which is still standing today.
Yeah.
And I'm assuming we'll go down and take a photograph.
We will do that before we leave.
Yeah. Dr. Samuel Bemis is another Vermonter, but he made his fame in Boston. And he was quite a character and a real innovator.
The dentist, wasn't he?
Yes, well, he started off as a watchmaker.
Right. Yes, that's right.
And then he became a dentist, and he invented several different dental tools, some of which are, they were prototypes of today's dental tools. So he was very, influential and innovative in those areas. He started coming here about 1883, and he stayed up at Fabian's and another tavern called the Moosehead Tavern, the old Moosehead Tavern, one of their taverns. But by the 1860s, Bemis began constructing the home and then the Notchland Inn here.
Mm-hmm. Which is a beautiful spot,
it is.
by the way.
We should say that, and I think we'll say more about it, but
it
totally could not recommend the site or the inn here anymore. It's a beautiful place, and it's always been meticulously well managed and well worth coming and enjoying here. Another thing about Bemis, he was a fly fisherman.
He was. I now remember that. Yes.
And then he was another thing that we both enjoy.
He was into photography, right?
Yes, very much. Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah, we were both a daguerreotype. He brought one of the very
daguerreotype.
Daguerreotype,
yes,
thank
the
you.
word.
Yeah, he bought one of the very first cameras in America.
Yeah.
And he was one of the very first landscape photographers of the White Mountains. And those pictures are still around today.
Yeah.
And there again, he was promoting that tourist industry.
Yeah.
So,
but the White Mountain School of Art was pretty much active at that time.
Yes, he entertained a lot of the different White Mountain School of Art artists, including was Godfrey Frankenstein. Yes, and Frankenstein, of course, further up the notch, gave his name to the famous cliff
up there.
Cliff.
Yep.
So, which is a fascinating thing. The whole White Mountain School of Art. There's a rather large collection of paintings in Jackson at the Historical Society, which are well worth taking in.
Yep. Well, it's a beautiful area, and it lent itself even in those days to attracting people to come up and want to spend some time here. Because in those days, I think if you did come, you did spend some time.
Yes.
Not like we used to come up here, fish somewhere or whatever, and go back home. You kind of came up, but it remains so today.
Yes,
I mean, this is
Absolutely.
still a beautiful area.
Well, in an earlier video, we discussed the Willies.
Yeah.
And they had an inn, which were kind of at the bottom or halfway up. It was halfway between here and halfway to the end of the top of the notch.
Yeah.
And they were very successful there for a while. And all of these notches, they entertained people like the Hawthorne.
Hawthorne, yeah,
Yes,
definitely spent time.
Franklin Pierce.
Yeah, I mean, Hawthorne wrote a book about the Great Stone Face.
Yes. And of course, we do have a video. We probably put a link to that.
Yeah.
A video about the Willie House and the famous Willie Slide.
Yes. In fact, we need to redo that one because
Yeah.
our sound was so bad when we did that.
Yeah,
But
it was kind of a bad day, windy, and a lot of traffic
a lot
on the
of
highway.
a lot of big trucks going by.
Yeah, so stay tuned for maybe a remake of that
Remake
one.
of that one.
But in the meantime, feel free to look at the old one.
On the other hand, too, our book should be out before too long. I
Yes,
think.
we are making progress.
Yeah, I mean, this
Well.
is November 11th, and 2024. So we're hoping by 2025 we actually have
Yeah.
at least volume 1 of our 2 books. So yeah, this was. I mean, these were important people to this area.
Very much so.
So Crawfords and Bemis,
Yeah.
rest in peace.
Rest in peace.